This is the podcast overview for week 11, where we will be covering chapter 13, Theories of Personality. So here is your to-do list for the week. We've got something a little different this week in that you're going to be taking a personality assessment. So you'll want to be looking for that. I've included a link here that you can do it, but it's also in with the discussion board question for the week. You're going to be talking about how you scored on the assessment and answering some questions about that. But let's go through the week. Here are the learning objectives for chapter 13. And I will have a link right above here that I'll put in to listen to the podcast overview of the learning objectives, which I go over each one in a little more detail. So you can go ahead and listen to that. I've got the PowerPoint lecture slides for chapter 13. And these are interactive. I know I've said this in the past, but I had a couple people ask me about it this past week. If you watch the slides in the presenter mode, you will be seeing it like in real time as though you were watching it in class. And you'll be able to access the embedded videos that are in the slides. And there's also some interactive assessments that you can do. Now, this is just an option. You don't have to look at the slides that way. You can feel free to print out the slides in outline format. That's an option. If you go to print slides, you can choose to print each slide, or you can choose to print it 3 slides per page, however you like, and you could view it that way, certainly. But it's also a good idea to watch it in PowerPoint presenter mode, which I think will help because you'll be getting those extra videos aside from the ones that are embedded in the Revel for the textbook that you're usually seeing when you're doing your reading. I've also put a couple extra videos this week. This one deals with the Rorschach ink blot and Freudian concepts, which is a huge component to personality theory. Freud was one of the first to have something to say about how our personality develops and where it comes from. And that developed, more recently into psychoanalytic theory and practice. And the Rorschach ink blot is just one type of test that is psychoanalytic in nature, but it goes over a few other ones as well. And then I've included a video about measuring personality in other ways, aside from the Freudian ideologies. So you'll see ways in which we commonly assess personality today in this crash course video. Your discussion for this week revolves around the Hawk reading. So this week you are reading Hawk 7.3, which is Racing Against Your Heart. And that's obviously in addition to chapter 13, Cicerelli and White. This week's reading in Hawk deals with personality and how it affects our health, specifically type A personality. So you're going to be reading about this in the main chapter. Chapter 13 talks about type A personality. So it's good to read that main chapter first and then read the Hawk reading so that you'll have a kind of a base understanding before you go into the Hawk reading. But so what you're going to want to do is define the characteristics of type A personality and explain how these traits are linked to heart disease. What specific things about type A links it to heart disease? So be careful here. Make sure you read appropriately. So it's not just being organized or liking things in their place. There's really, so I don't want to give it away, there's some specific characteristics about a type A person that leads them to heart disease, that pathway, okay? So make sure you check that carefully and talk about that. And then, do you know of anyone with type A personality? What about them tells you they are type A? Give some examples of their behavior. If you don't know anyone who's type A that's close to you, which would be surprising, so many people are today, maybe there's a movie or a TV character that you could use who you know is type A, and you could describe their behavior. And then how can a person with type A personality change to improve his or her health? Are there some things that a person could do if they know themselves to be type A? Are there some things they could do to improve that, to better improve the trajectory of their health? Give at least 2 research-based suggestions, and remember to cite your sources here. So I'm looking for integration from your main text and from the Hawk reading. And then lastly, a shift from talking about type A to now talking about your personality. You're going to be taking a Myers-Briggs type personality online assessment. This is not the full-length Myers-Briggs test, but it is a typology of Myers-Briggs. It's a shortened version. So you can click here and you can take the online assessment. When you finish, make sure you get all your results. You'll have the option to do that because you'll want to describe what personality type you got, and then what are the strengths and weaknesses of your personality type. Now, this is tricky. These personality assessments are very accurate, and sometimes it's hard for us to hear it, especially when it comes to weaknesses. We might take credit for our strengths when it comes to our personality, but sometimes we have a hard time taking credit for our weaknesses. So I'm really looking for you to broaden your minds here, allow room for self-reflection and self-evaluation in understanding your personality a little bit better, and then sharing with us what you got. Okay, so that is the discussion for week 11. You have a quiz on chapter 13, the personality theories, and then you have your 5th exam, which covers chapters 12 and 13, and that's going to be due by Sunday as usual. So that wraps up the week. Please make sure to let me know if you have any questions going into this week or going into the test. Please use, again, these objectives as a guide, as a study guide to, helping you through your test. You should be able to really fully explain each of these on your own without looking at your book or your notes. And that's a good gauge of whether or not you're understanding the content and is it helping you. So please use these as a way to study for that upcoming test. And let me know again this week if you have any questions. Thanks, everyone.